Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the After the Frame podcast. My name is Malik, and I am joined, as always, by.
Hi, my name is Matt.
And today we are reviewing Honey Don't, the newest of not the Coen brothers, but a Coen brothers movie. And yeah, we kind of have some thoughts on this one. Had a pretty, you could say, stacked cast for the small cast that they had, like three pretty big names. And yeah, we were both a little disappointed. Matt, what did you think about this movie before we get into the breakdown?
So, as a whole, Honey Don't was kind of a bummer for me. And I really enjoy the Coen brothers' work. Like No Country for Old Men is fantastic, a fantastic movie. But as far as this one goes, there are definitely some good things here. I mean, the dialogue is sharp in places and the acting is solid, but it really feels like the movie got chopped to pieces in the editing room. The tone is all over the place and it never really quite figures out what it wants to be. My main positive is actually Margaret Qualley. She is doing something really fun in this movie, and she's basically channeling a golden age noir performance. She has like this transatlantic accent, and honestly, I loved that part of her character. But the problem is that nobody else in the cast is doing the same thing to kind of match her energy. And it feels like she's in a completely different movie than everyone around her, which just makes the whole thing feel uneven, in my opinion. As far as the story goes, the story itself, it set up a bunch of intertwining plot lines. And in the first act, I was into it. I thought, okay, this could go somewhere interesting. But then none of those threads really pay off. And by the time you get to the third act, it just feels rushed and kind of messy. And the ending especially just did not work for me. It was so abrupt and bizarre. And when the credits rolled, I literally said out loud, like, wait, that's it? It just felt like they were in the middle of wrapping things up and then just stopped. But overall, yeah, I mean, there's some cool stuff here, but it just didn't come together. I'd say if you're a fan of Margaret Qualley or Aubrey Plaza, or if you're just here for the sapphic energy, you'll probably have fun with it. But for me, it just didn't land.
Yeah, in my theater, there was a row of girls that were hooting and hollering during the sex scene between Aubrey Plaza and Margaret Qualley, which we'll get into. So obviously, there is an audience that will enjoy it. Like, if you're into those two girls, they do have a relatively graphic sex scene with full nudity and everything. So if you like that, I guess, then sure. But I 100% agree with you that this movie, my big issue with the whole movie was that it did not know what it wanted to be. I thought when the movie began that this was going to be like an old-timey movie. The way that Margaret Qualley was talking, it just seemed very, like how you said, old-timey noir detective. But then they come to find out it's in the modern day. They have references to MAGA and COVID. And yeah, I was very thrown by this. Even some of the outfits, the costumes weren't necessarily very modern. So it seemed as though like maybe they kind of wanted to go with that, and then maybe they changed it after the fact. I wasn't sure. But I found very few things to actually like in this movie. I was relatively bored just because our main character, because of the way her character is, where she's very straight laced, doesn't show a lot of emotions. That doesn't necessarily make for a lot of great scenes with her. And to me, I thought Chris Evans was the best part of the movie just because he actually brought like levity to it. But even his whole arc with the church and the drugs or whatever, it just seemed like the movie just wanted to set up like 10 different things, but didn't really have a way to tie everything up into a bow come the end of the movie. So yeah, I walked out of this, like, I can't even say disappointed because going into it, I didn't really have a lot of expectations, but I was not very happy with this movie for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main point to drive home is we really just need both Joel and Ethan Coen back together just making movies, because since, if it's one of them, the movie just sucks. If it's both of them, the movie's typically pretty good, sometimes great.
Yeah. I mean, my issue was not so much the directing. I think it was just the writing of the movie. I think that the directing was fine, like the acting was fine. That passable to me. I think that it's just the screenplay, and as you said, like maybe it got, chopped up in the editing room. I have no idea. I'd have to look into it and see what happened with this movie to be specific, but yeah, I didn't have an issue with his directing per se. I didn't have necessarily an issue with any one actor's performance. Yeah, I'd say it was just more so the writing and the plot for me just seemed kind of all over the place, and everybody was kind of doing the best that they could with what they were given.
Yeah, I mean, just disappointing in my eyes. Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have anything else to say, then yeah, we can jump right into the scene by scene breakdown and we'll give our thoughts on the scenes as they go. Because this movie was a little bit shorter, we'll probably just have scenes kind of clumped together because there's not a ton to say with some of these scenes. So, but yeah, we can get straight into it whenever you're ready. You can take it
Yeah,
away.
we can dive right in. Yeah, the start is very straightforward. The movie kicks off in Bakersfield, and we meet Honey O'Donoghue, played by Margaret Qualley, who's this private investigator, and she gets called to a car crash by Detective Marty Medikowicz, played by Charlie Day. And right away, you just kind of see how little respect he has for her. He's openly homophobic and just kind of a jerk. And the victim of the car crash turns out to be Mia Novotny, played by Kenna McEnroe. I've got the cast right up here. And Mia had actually reached out to hire Honey earlier that same day. Honey keeps that part to herself, and that's really the hook of the story, which honestly to me I thought was a pretty good setup.
I mean, this first scene, you see a lady who we come to find out, this French lady, comes over to the car crash in the beginning scene, and she takes a ring off of the girl in the car crash, which we see later on with Chris Evans and his church and all of that. But yeah, we're introduced to Honey, and then yeah, that detective played by Charlie Day. Charlie Day was just hitting on her every scene, and she kept on saying, I like girls, and he was just not accepting that but would just try to, in every which way, just kind of almost coming off like a creep. But yeah, I think this movie started off, like you said in the first act, it set up this hook, like, this person that's been killed, or well, all the cops are saying, it's something to do with a car crash. But Margaret Qualley, Honey, she knows that this person called her earlier that day, and she thinks she's suspecting like foul play going on here. So it starts with the audience kind of, as you said, hooking you into being like, something is not as it seems. And then you have this strange woman show up and just take the ring off of her, knowing that she probably has something to play into it. But we'll see going forward that that's the movie doesn't really pay off all of that.
From there, the movie starts branching into all these different threads. Honey takes a case from this guy named Mr. Siegfried, who's played by Billy Eichner, who thinks his boyfriend's cheating. She also goes to see her sister and her family, including her niece Corinne, who's already set up as this rebellious teenager. We also meet Officer M.G. Falcone, played by Aubrey Plaza, and she gives Honey some info on Mia, and Honey learns that Mia had gotten involved in this culty church called the Four-Way Temple. Now, here's where Margaret Qualley's performance really stands out. She's doing this, as we touched on, golden age noir type thing and transatlantic accents. And it's entertaining, but it doesn't really match what anyone else in the movie is doing. Like we've stated previously, it honestly feels like she's in a completely different movie, which at this point early on really shows how inconsistent the tone was. What do you think?
I will say that from the first second, how Honey and Aubrey Plaza's character met, you could see that there was already a sexual tension between the two of them. Going into this movie, I did not see a trailer. Apparently, there is like it gives away in the trailer that there was going to be the sex scene or whatever, but I had no idea. Until like I got into the movie, but immediately as soon as she goes to visit, in like by that evidence locker or whatever you want to call it in the police precinct, you could see that there was something between the two of them. They immediately like started, locking eyes, and there was definitely going to be something. But yeah, to your point, I think that this movie, you start to see how everybody's acting completely differently. And this is where I started to see that this is not the movie I thought it was, because as I said, I thought it was going to be an old timey movie, like placed back like 30, 40, 50 years in the past. And then Billy Eichner's character comes in and is talking about COVID and is cleaning down the seat and everything. So I was a little taken aback by that, and just seeing how all the costumes were and everything in this town. But yeah, it was a fine setup. We'll see where this relationship between Aubrey Plaza and Margaret Qualley go into in the next scenes.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, we cut to Reverend Drew, played by Mr. Chris Evans himself, who is running the temple. We come to find out he's running drugs on the side for these traffickers. He's sleeping with his congregants. That's very church-like, and really just trying to hold it all together. His henchman, named Shuggy, is covering up problems, and one of his dealers, named Hector, kills a guy in a panic. This was just a complete tonal shift for me. So then Shuggy kills Hector's grandma, Hector kills Shuggy, and then Drew kills Hector. So that's just, there's a lot of crisscrossing here. And it does grab your interest at first, but the problem is, none of these threads ever really pay off in a satisfying way. It just boom, bam, bop, dead, dead, dead. It's just kind of like, okay.
I mean, this we come to find out in I think the next scene that the guy who Hector ends up killing is actually the boyfriend of Billy Eichner, and he's basically offering Hector like head. Yeah, because he doesn't have the money for the drugs, and then that turns into a whole thing in which they start roughing each other up, and then Hector kind of freaks it, and the next thing you know, he just runs him over, and the bartender ends up seeing it, bringing the police into it, and then yeah, Chris Evans has to kind of clean everything up, sends his goon to go and kill Hector, ends up killing his grandma. Hector fights him off, kills him, and then yeah, he shows up. There's a few scenes where they show Chris Evans and he's just having sex in the back of the church with multiple women at a time, and yeah, Hector just shows up during one of the times he's having sex and shows up with a gun. Chris Evans just gets the jump on him and actually ends up shooting him instead. But yeah, these threads are set up, and I was thinking like everything's going to tie together. I thought that where these drugs were going, and then also seeing Chris Evans wearing that ring, which was the ring that the girl picked up in that first scene, I was certain that, oh yeah, this is all just going to tie together. Chris Evans is the villain, and we know who Margaret Qualley is going to try and be investigating. But like you said, these threads kind of just start getting thrown in here and there and aren't going to really get picked up on. And yeah, the tonal shift was very breakneck speed. It went from, sex scene to murder to sex scene to, comedy. It's just jumping all over the place.
And not to get too ahead of ourselves, but that keeps going. It lasts all the film. Continuing on, we catch up back with Honey, and as you alluded to previously, she starts sleeping with MG, Aubrey Plaza, and we come to learn a bit about MG's rough past with her abusive father. Then Corinne comes to Honey after her boyfriend beats her, and then this creepy older man just starts following her around, which we learn to find out in a major plot twist. It turns out to be Honey and Heidi's estranged dad. At this same time, Honey finds out Mia was stabbed before her body was put in the car crash. So, yeah, staged. And that the temple is connected to multiple deaths. And these are all interesting pieces, but the movie never gives them the time they need to breathe. This clump of segments and scenes together, like it's just throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing what sticks, and just adding fluff without giving the fluff the time to expand.
That was the issue I had with this movie. I never felt like we stayed on a character for enough time for me to really care about what was going on with them. I think that the whole twist with the dad, or Corinne's grandfather, same thing. I thought that that was the biggest waste of time. It ends up being that he's just trying to, I guess, reach back out to his family. And he thought the best way to do that is literally following his granddaughter and just not explaining to her, hey, I'm your grandfather, but just following her to her work and waiting for her at a bus stop and just saying, I love you. He thought that that was an appropriate thing to do. And so she runs off. And then, yeah, he goes to reach out to Margaret Qualley as well. And they talk in her kitchen, and that's the last that we see of him, and it's never brought up again. Like, they never resolve anything with the dad. So it's another classic case of they just introduced something and they didn't really know where they wanted to go with it. So I really dislike that whole thing. I just after that scene when the movie ended, I was like, oh, so they never even brought the dad back in any way. That, like, I was like, what a waste of time.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And then here's where the wheels really start to fall off the car. And the finale. The finale is trying to pull everything together. Cher, this French liaison, kills Drew and ends their partnership. And then Honey goes to check on MG. And this is just really where it all unraveled to me. We find that MG's kidnapped Corinne, and then we find out she was behind Mia's death too. So within all this, she stabs Honey, they fight, and Honey kills her with her own gun. And then Honey wakes up in an ambulance. Corinne's safe, and we learn that MG was also behind other unsolved murders. And then the movie ends with Honey and Cher noticing each other at a stoplight and kind of flirting, which is, a pretty odd way to wrap things up. The ending just goes off the rails, and not in a good way.
The whole reveal of Aubrey Plaza being the person behind everything doesn't even really work as it being a twist villain, just because, not even in the sense that, oh, the audience doesn't see it coming. It just doesn't really add up or make sense. Her whole spiel that she gives Honey is that, oh, when she was younger, her dad abused her, and it was because she let him do it. And then one day she started to stand up to him and ended up like stabbing him as well in the same house that she lives in currently. And so she took it upon herself for some reason to just go around and kill other women that are allowing men to abuse them, was basically kind of what she was saying. I just, that was a bunch of bullshit to me. That's a bunch of nonsense that they just wanted to throw in there to give her some sort of motivation that just did not land for me. And then yeah, Cher, of course, ends up killing Chris Evans' character unceremoniously. Not before, of course, they have sex, because everybody in this town is just horny as hell. I think it should have been called Horny Don't, not Honey Don't. But yeah, I just thought that, like you said, like it's just bouncing around different styles, different acting, different tones, to the point where, as I said, you just feel like you're getting whiplash. And then yeah, the film just abruptly ends, and then Honey ends up going to the detective one last time, and he's still flirting with her. Same old. She says, "I only like girls." She drives off, sees Cher at a stop sign or a stoplight, and then yeah, they start flirting and talking about where she's going to and what plane she's catching. And then it just cuts to Honey smiling, and then we can just assume that they have some sort of sex again, and that's how the movie ends. And I just felt as though, man, I just did not care about any one of these characters. I at no point was like, I'm gonna remember any of these characters after this movie. Just very blah, you know?
Yeah, and I know we went through that really quick, but that's the thing. Like, this movie has some cool ideas, some solid acting, and even sharp dialogue in spots. But in my opinion, the editing and the inconsistent tone just sink it. You've got Qualley doing this fun noir thing that feels like a different movie, storylines that start strong but don't go anywhere, and then the finale that's so rushed, you literally think like, wait, that's it? It's kind of a letdown. But like I said, if you're a big Margaret Qualley or Aubrey Plaza fan, you'll probably still have a good time because they're the best parts of it. This is by far, no substance level or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood level of performance for Margaret Qualley. But I mean, I enjoyed seeing her as a lead. But to your point, I'm not gonna recall any of this.
Yeah, I mean, we zoomed through this. This is obviously like our quickest episode, but to your point, it's not even like that we could add too much more to the scene by scene breakdowns. I mean, all the scenes that we talked about were the consequential scenes, and everything else was just fodder that was just in the movie for one reason or another, just to pad out the runtime. But that, like, how quick this review was kind of how quick the movie just went by without getting a chance to explain everything, and for you to really have a chance to fall in love with these characters. Have, from the beginning of the movie, they set up there's this murder. You have this mysterious woman who's here, who you're assuming is tied to it all. It sets up that you have a detective in Hunt, or a private investigator in Honey. You got the police involved. Then you got this other cop who she's having sexual relationships with. Then you have Chris Evans, who's this pastor who's dealing drugs out of a church. You got her dad showing up out of the blue. It's just so many different things are happening. I feel like it was as if it was written to be a season of a show, a television show, and just condensed into a movie. But yeah, far too rushed to me, and just doesn't pay off like any of the stuff that it sets up. And the things that it does pay off is just so unsatisfying that you end up leaving the theater just feeling like, wow, I kind of wasted my time watching this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a short movie, 89 minutes, but you probably really only need 40% of that to grasp kind of what's going on here. And I think you made a good point. I think this could have been much better as a TV show. Eight episodes, 45-minute episodes. You give a little bit more air to breathe with the setting, the characters. You bonk down the horniness levels a little bit, and you might have a decent quality TV show, not this hodgepodge of a film.
No, we can't bonk down the horniness. As I said, the people in my theater were there just like when I tell you the girls in the rows like two in front of us were applauding during the sex scene like it was Captain America picking up Thor's hammer. They were having the time of their life. So the horniness needs to be there. I think that that's what sold the movie for a lot of people. So
Probably.
You can tell when you see this movie how much sex scenes it's so cavalier with the sex scenes, not just the stuff with Honey, but Chris Evans' character is having threesomes casually and like, but if that's not offensive to you, then you're not going to really care. But maybe you're on the other camp of the people that were in my theater who like it a little bit, a little bit more. So it depends on what you're looking for in a movie, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Coen Brothers stuff, and I haven't seen every single movie they've done, but this might be my clear, far and away least favorite one they've done that I've seen. I touched on it before. Like, No Country for Old Men is a classic. Fargo's a classic. Those are some of my favorites ever. And yeah, this one just
Didn't work.
no, not at all. It was just a very, very messy mystery. It makes me wonder what it could have been had you taken that time to build it out a little bit more and kind of establish more of what you're doing rather than just dead, 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 sex, sex, like left, right, and center. Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much more for us to say. I think we can just get into our final thoughts, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
if you're ready for that. Currently, at the time of this recording on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is a 46% and a audience score of 43%. Let me check Letterbox real quick. I can't imagine that it's much different. Let me see here. There we go. Yeah, it's at a 2.6 out of 5. So a little bit higher than what Rotten Tomatoes was giving it. But to me, this movie, it's in between like a 2 to 2.5 star movie for me. I haven't really like sat down and really like had the chance to digest everything within the movie. But yeah, a solid 4 or a 5 out of 10 for me, like in between that's what I'd give it.
Yeah, no, I think that's at a fair score. I'm in the same boat as you. I haven't really sat down and kind of put it in a spot where I can, come to terms with it and
Hmm.
rank it respective to others. But right now, I'd give it a 2 stars out of 5. I don't imagine that moving. It could very well go lower,
Oh wow.
but I don't think it'll go much higher.
Yeah, it was just a mess of a movie. Just from the actors that were in it, I was looking forward to what. Yeah, and it was a little bit of like a mystery. I thought it'd at least be interesting, but like I said, a lot of the times you were actually quite bored in it. Like I wasn't even really drawn into the mystery so much. I wasn't really trying to figure anything out sitting in the theater. So yeah, just a little bit of a mess of a movie, honestly.
Yeah, it's no weapons, that's for sure.
No, for sure not. I definitely say my recommendation is to skip this one. If you want to watch it, wait for streaming, but you're not missing much, I'd say.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You can skip this one unless you are a big, big fan of horny time.
People might be, but yeah, that's about it. And you have any other thoughts before we actually sign off?
No, I am all good.
All right. Well, next week obviously is going to be Labor Day. We once again are going to have another ranking video for you. But until then, yeah, I mean, thank you all for listening once again. Feel free to leave us comments, send us DMs on Instagram about what you thought of this movie or any of the other movies that we've covered so far. And yeah, we'll catch you all next week for our DCEU ranking.
Yeah, everybody, thank you for listening, and yeah, feel free to engage with us.
All right. Bye bye. Take
See
care.
ya.